Everyone thinks the DeLorean was just a movie car. They are wrong. It was a full-blown financial catastrophe hiding under stainless steel. The DeLorean DMC-12 wasn't built in Detroit. It was built in Belfast, Northern Ireland, in a factory that shouldn't have existed. John DeLorean, a man with the charisma of a Hollywood agent and the financial acumen of a Vegas gambler, convinced the British government to sink $176 million into his dream. That's 1981 money. Adjusted for inflation, we're talking $500 million. The government believed him. The investors believed him. I don't believe in coincidences, and the fact that a car company with zero track record landed that much public money, that's not luck. That's a con. Exhibit 1, the car itself was a marvel. Stainless steel body panels, gull-wing doors, brushed aluminum interior. It looked like it came from the future. Except it didn't. The engine was a Renault V6, a 2.8-liter motor that produced 130 horsepower. That's not impressive. That's barely acceptable. The car was underpowered, overweight, and slow. 0 to 60 took nearly 11 seconds. A Honda Civic was faster, but nobody cared about the specs. They cared about the dream. Exhibit 2. The manufacturing process was a disaster from day one. Quality control didn't exist. Workers in Belfast were building cars for a man they'd never met, in a country he'd never visited, using designs that changed every other week. The factory was behind schedule before the first car rolled off the line. Cost overruns stacked up like cordwood. By 1982, the company had already burned through millions. DeLorean kept promising investors that the next quarter would turn it around. It never did. Here's where it gets interesting. In October 1982, John DeLorean was arrested at a Los Angeles hotel. Federal agents found him with nearly 6 pounds of cocaine. The charges were felony drug trafficking. Now DeLorean claimed entrapment, that undercover FBI agents had pressured him into the deal. Maybe they did. Maybe he was desperate. His company was hemorrhaging cash, and he was out of legitimate options. The trial dragged on for a year. In the meantime, the factory in Belfast shut down. Exhibit 3, fewer than 9,000 DeLoreans were ever built. The company produced cars for roughly 18 months before the lights went out. That's not a failure of the market. That's a failure of execution, capitalization, and management. Only about 3,000 of those cars still exist today. The rest were scrapped or rotted in junkyards. Owners discovered that the stainless steel didn't age well. It tarnished, it oxidized. It looked like a neglected appliance. The cars that were supposed to last forever started falling apart in 5 years. DeLorean was acquitted of the drug charges in 1984. The jury decided the evidence of entrapment was strong enough. He walked free, but his company was already dead. The factory in Belfast was shuttered. Investors had lost everything. The British government's $176 million gamble had produced a footnote in automotive history. DeLorean spent the rest of his life trying to rehabilitate his image. He gave lectures, wrote books, did interviews. Nobody cared. He'd built a car that looked like the future but ran like the past. The real scandal wasn't the cocaine arrest. It was what it revealed about the entire operation. DeLorean had built a company on hype, not engineering. He'd convinced investors and governments that he was a genius. In reality, he was a salesman, a very good one, but still just a salesman. He had no experience running a factory. He had no experience managing supply chains. He had no experience doing anything except selling cars for General Motors. And when the pressure mounted, when the money dried up, when the impossible deadlines couldn't be met, he looked for an exit. That exit came in the form of a federal sting operation. The DeLorean became immortal in 1985, when Back to the Future used it as a time machine. Suddenly, the car that had failed as a business success became a cultural icon. Kids who'd never heard of the company recognized the stainless steel body. The movie gave the car a second life it didn't deserve, but it also cemented its reputation as a relic, a beautiful, impractical, ultimately doomed artifact of misplaced ambition. What happened to DeLorean himself? He faded. He died in 2005, nearly broke, largely forgotten by the industry he'd once dominated. The company that bore his name was sold for parts. The patents were scattered. The factory in Belfast was repurposed. Nobody wanted to invest in automotive dreams anymore. The 1980s were over. The era of the visionary entrepreneur had given way to the era of the competent manager. DeLorean belonged to a different time, an era when a good pitch could move mountains, and when the mountains crumbled, nobody asked why. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. Every year, somewhere in the startup world, another John DeLorean is pitching another impossible dream to another set of investors. The rhetoric changes. The technology changes. The outcome doesn't. We still believe charisma is a substitute for competence. We still confuse vision with execution. We still throw money at people who know how to talk instead of people who know how to build. The DeLorean didn't fail because it was ahead of its time. It failed because it was built by someone who had no business building anything. So here's what we know. John DeLorean convinced a government, investors, and the public that he could build a revolutionary car. He couldn't. The company burned through $500 million in adjusted money and produced fewer than 9,000 vehicles. The cars fell apart. The company collapsed. The founder got arrested for cocaine trafficking. And decades later, people still think the car was a success because Hollywood made it cool. That's not just a business failure. That's a con that never quite got exposed. The DeLorean is proof that a great idea, charismatic leadership, and government backing can't overcome bad engineering, worse management, and zero experience. It's a cautionary tale wrapped in stainless steel and sold as a dream. And if you want to understand why the smartest money in the world keeps throwing billions at the next John DeLorean, even when the signs are right there in front of you, then subscribe. There's a new unsolved case in startup failure every week. Subscribe, there's a new cautionary tale in tech, and startup collapse every week.